Well, hello everyone. If you can tell by the title of the video, yes, it is finally time. For those of you out there who have been following me for a very long time now, you are probably very well aware that I am not a fan of the director Christopher Nolan. I know a lot of people out there really love Christopher Nolan's work, and I like Christopher Nolan's early work. I really enjoyed Insomnia, I really liked Memento, I enjoyed The Prestige, but I feel like as Nolan has progressed in his career, he is so much more a visual style director and working with sound design to get a very visceral reaction out of his viewers and less about the actual substance that exists in the film. That's kind of taken away from his work for me. I'm not as interested in watching his material. Ever since Inception, I've really just kind of been mild to his work. I don't find any of it incredibly impressive. I always am watching and picking it apart, and I'm thinking, well, if you want to be an abstract Terrence Malick-esque director, go that route, but he doesn't go abstract enough to really be an experimental filmmaker, and he tries to push into the narrative in a direction where there is no balance, so it just feels discombobulated most of the time, and I don't ever really get any intense emotional feeling out of any of his films. And Oppenheimer's been out for a while now. I did not watch it when it was first released because, to be quite honest, I wasn't really all that interested in it. But after seeing the immense positive reviews, even from people who are not necessarily a fan of Nolan, it added some more interest to me. So I finally got around to sitting around and watching this 3-hour beast of a film. I'm going to tell you about it today, so we're going to be discussing Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer is directed by Christopher Nolan. The story of J. Robert Oppenheimer's role in the development of the atomic bomb during World War II. So, as I said, lots of immensely positive reviews for this. I am not a big Christopher Nolan fan, but I went into this hoping I was going to really like it, because anytime I go into a director's work, I don't ever go into any movie wanting to hate it. I always hope that a director will take me by surprise and that I'll eventually find something to enjoy in their work, and unfortunately, this was not that for me either. I really did not enjoy this movie. I'm not going to take away from the fact that I think there are some really impressive things in this film, but I think cohesively, as a narrative, what it's trying to accomplish, it doesn't really work. It's trying to be so many different things, and in 3 hours you think you would be able to kind of bring it in and make it really effective, and unfortunately it never really is, and I'll talk about it in detail as I break the film down. So, as the plot description simply states, the film follows Cillian Murphy as J. Robert Oppenheimer, and we're getting segments into his life. We get him at school, we get him finally starting to understand the science about what he is beginning to work on, creating this bomb. We get the time that he takes working with other scientists to create this bomb. We also get a paralleled form of trials or like hearings or whatever you want to call them. One being related to Robert Downey Jr.'s character being put into the Senate, and one questioning Oppenheimer's loyalty to the United States. And so the entire film is going through these different segments in Oppenheimer's life, trying to look at him as a person, at the actions that he took in coming up with the idea of this bomb, and really just trying to get the audience to think, should a person have the ability to create something that can cause this much damage to the planet and possibly inevitably destroy the world? And unfortunately, that's really all it is. The question of should a person be able to possess this level of power is really the only thing the film ends up exploring, and that's something that could be covered in about 15 minutes, unfortunately. There's not really much else to it. As far as looking at Oppenheimer as a person, so much of the film is Oppenheimer going into a room, shaking hands with someone, and being introduced to a new character, so that at some point that character can come back into play later on in the film and have more dialogue. It's just very repetitive sequences of dialogue after dialogue after dialogue, and none of it really adds to him as a person. They try to make him out to be this like womanizer throughout the film, which it's kind of hard to believe that that would have been true, and it's really kind of cheesy the way that it's executed. My favorite performance in the film was Cillian Murphy. I do think that he's very transformative. I was really impressed impressed with a lot of the scenes that he was in. But the other actor I really enjoyed, and it was Florence Pugh for the limited amount of time that she was in the film. But there is one scene where they have sex and she makes him read out of this book, and it's really cringeworthy, and it's just more of like, Nolan does not know how to write character interactions. He doesn't know how to write relationships. Throughout his filmography, always, whenever there's a relationship included in his films, it just feels so sloppy and really poorly structured. And that's just like a small part of what makes this movie not effective. For one thing, it's bloated. It never needed to be 3 hours. After the initial bomb going off sequence, I feel like there could have been a couple more scenes, but the Robert Downey Jr. paralleled trial or hearing with Oppenheimer's was supposed to create an additional level of tension, and I just found it being really grating. It was just a way to bring characters back into the story, because this is all shit you can find out on Wikipedia. It's not like you're really uncovering any new information about him as a person. The other thing I hate about this movie, and that I hate about Nolan as a filmmaker, this feels like a music video. You do not need to play heavy orchestral score over every single moment in your film. Let some of your actors do the work. Cillian Murphy is really giving it his all in this film. And there are so many emotionally powerful moments that would work if it wasn't for the blaring score playing over top of him. It just became corny. It's like, do you not trust your audience to be smart enough to be emotionally moved by a performance and not some loud, blaring, screaming orchestral music in the background? And it was like over the most mundane things that it would just play. It was like, man, we really have to make sure that this audience is invested for the full 3 hours. Another thing that irritated me about this film is the aspect ratio. For Christ's sake, Nolan has been making movies for how long now? I'm getting reverse shot sequences in 2 different aspect ratios in the same room. Are you just that lazy? It's not providing any new perspective from a character. Normally, when a director shifts aspect ratio throughout a film, it's to create a different sense of space. It's to put us in a very specific spot in our character's brain. There's none of that. This reminded me of like Andrew Dominik's Blonde, where it's just like someone put a cinematographer in charge and said, just use whatever lens you think works, and it became really grating. There was no need to jump from 16:9 to a more boxy aspect ratio back to 16:9. There were some moments in like 10-minute sequences, there was like jump after jump, and it's just, as someone who understands film editing and the way films are shot, it's irritating. A person operating at this level should not be doing that. And the editing in this film is so chaotic and obnoxious, and it's trying to create some sense of suspense for you as an audience member, but it just felt really jarring after a while, jumping place to place from handheld to Steadicam. And I can understand if there was intentionality in the moments, but there were quiet moments of dialogue between characters, that there's still score playing in the background, and the editing's like cut, 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 cut. Just let it breathe for a minute. And I don't understand why Nolan, at this point in his career, can't just let characters breathe in a space that it just has to jump, 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 jump. And to me, as someone who watches a lot of movies, it's inexcusable. It really makes no sense to me why. And there are moments of brilliance in this film. There's a scene specifically after the bomb detonates that Oppenheimer is giving this speech to this group of people, and it's absolutely beautifully shot. It looks amazing. It's emotionally impactful to the theme that the film is going for, which is, should a person be able to possess this level of power? What would be the emotional toll on a person if they possessed that level of power? And that one scene summarized the entire 3-hour movie to where everything that came after it didn't matter anymore, because that, you made your point. And I kept thinking in my head, and maybe it's because of how recently this film was released, but I was thinking about the recent film Spencer, starring Kristen Stewart, that was about Princess Diana. And obviously that is a biopic, that the biopic is not structured in a way that it's just giving you every bit of information about Princess Diana's life. It's trying to show you more about her as a person, which is seemingly what Oppenheimer is trying to do. Nolan is trying to tell you more about how Oppenheimer acted and the way things impacted him throughout this level of experience. It's not just like, he was born here, he did this, he did that. And in Spencer, what you get is so many amazing moments where the camera hangs on Kristen Stewart, where she's in a very tight, suspenseful situation, and we get her immediate reaction. We see what it's like for her to navigate her really popular life and how many people saw her as this celebrity when she just wanted to be a mother. And there's so much in that film that creates really powerful emotion inside you as a viewer, doing very little with the amazing Johnny Greenwood score that only plays in moments that really matter. And in this, it's just like it doesn't understand its own intentionality. It's really just like trying to be as bombastic as possible with a really loud sound design. And it's hoping to emotionally manipulate you with the score to the point where it feels like something bigger than what it actually is. And I know there's people that have watched this multiple times, and I just kept thinking in the tail end of this, what would bring you back to want to watch this movie again? There's really not anything other than some solid performances that make this movie worth revisiting. I mean, it's a story that you can read on Wikipedia. It's something that you can understand. You're not pulling anything really deep emotionally unless you're just thinking about the doom and gloom of our planet, which just turn on the news. I mean, it's honestly, we're living in a hellscape right now as it is, and what people are going through in Gaza right now, that's absolutely horrifying. And we're living in a literal hellscape. I don't know why you'd need to watch a movie about previous horrible actions from our government impacting groups of people and killing large groups of people in the name of war. Lots of people in Japan who absolutely had no sway whatsoever into what was going on in the war, and were just trying to live their lives. And you know, there is also in this type of a film, there's like liberal politics in place, which I can appreciate, having that push and pull about Oppenheimer's interest in communism. I liked some of that, but it's never deeply enough explored. There's still some moments that feel like they fetishize the US government, which I feel like that happens in a lot of these movies about the United States. It starts to get grating. That's why I hated Top Gun Maverick so much. I just couldn't look through that lens. Obviously, this isn't as overt, so it didn't annoy me as much, but all of those issues that I just discussed really made this kind of a grating experience. And I'm not saying it's a bad movie. Nolan is clearly a talented director that understands how to shoot things. He understands how to get good performances out of his characters. I just don't think he necessarily knew what this movie was going to be as a whole, other than somebody probably shouldn't build a bomb that can kill a bunch of people. That's really all I got out of this movie. I didn't get anything more about Oppenheimer's life. I don't really feel like I learned anything more about the situation that I didn't learn when I was in school or that I could pull off Wikipedia. And I just left kind of disappointed. I feel like people really overhyped this movie. It's not really all that spectacular, and I don't see myself ever revisiting this again. So have you seen Oppenheimer? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought this movie was very mediocre. I think despite some of the really excellent performances, the film is hollow. There's really not a lot going on in it. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot. Lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.